From the Warhammer Imperium magazine, collected short stories narrated by J.H. Miniatures. At the request of Inquisitor Draxos, slaughter in the Rift. Location, the Nachmund Gauntlet. Population, 10 billion. Status unknown. Threat level, Alpha Extremis. Scout report, NG89178 Nachmund. Scouts report heavy heretic Astartes presence throughout the gauntlet. Drukhari raiders also present a significant threat to shipping. Uprisings reported on Septum Verda and the hives of Parathis. Adeptus Astartes forces have been dispatched to restore order. Guardians of the Nachmund Gauntlet. The Castellans of the Rift were created during the Ultima founding and made their name during the height of the Indomitus Crusade. They are successors of the Primarch Guilliman and possess the Ultramarines' characteristic discipline and devotion to the Codex. They know the Nachmund Gauntlet better than any other, having sworn to defend this region of space from the predations of Chaos and Xenos foes alike. Lord Admiral Quirin Priska. The fires of war rage across the narrow expanse of the Nachmund Gauntlet and have already engulfed several Imperial worlds. On the industrial planet of Septum Verda, the Castellans of the Rift chapter find themselves beset by Chaos cultists and hateful heretic Astartes. Acrid smoke drifted through the hollowed-out remnants of Septum Verda's Factorum shrines and assembly plants. Prometheum storage bays burned fiercely amidst the carnage, illuminating the ashen hellscape. Through the rubble scrambled screeching throngs of black-garbed cultists, their faces twisted into expressions of malice, anguish, and ecstasy. Most bore augmentic enhancements, from pincer claws and crushing vices to barbed surgical devices and glistening hypodermic syringes, the tools of their former trade now slick with blood and gore. Sergeant Melanus led his squad through the clambering mob, bolt rifle firing into the mass of bodies. Several times the cultists leapt atop the Space Marines' armour, clawing and scratching with their improvised weapons. The sergeant kept firing his bolt rifle as he pulled and swatted the pallid cultists from atop his power armour with his left gauntlet, hurled them to the ground to be crushed beneath the ceramite boots of his squadmates. Through the haze of battle, Melanus's gaze fell upon a horrifying sight. From the centre of a mountain of ruined corpses rose an obscene circular structure, its black stone core marked with glowing runes and its tarnished brass frame wreathed in a field of warp energy. "There, the Noctilith crown! Call forth the Eradicators!" Melanus barked into his Vox channel. Before the profane device, familiar figures garbed in Baroque armour of black and gold stood silent guard, heretic Astartes of the Black Legion. Melanus and his brothers emptied their bolt rifles into the streaming mass of cultists, clearing a channel towards the abhorrent traitors and their Blackstone construct. The Chaos Space Marines had noticed their loyalist brothers' approach now. They fanned out before the Noctilith crown, moving in disciplined formation, 10,000 years of combat training and experience guiding their every movement. Their leader, a champion of the dark gods, his helmet wrought in the image of a howling demonic face, levelled a gore-encrusted chain axe in the direction of Melanus's brothers. Empirical energies burst from the Noctilith crown's shimmering surface to wreathe the legionaries in a blanket of roiling warp power. Melanus and his brothers advanced in battle formation of their own, firing their bolt rifles relentlessly. Explosive shells rained down upon the Chaos Space Marines, only to be absorbed or turned aside by tendrils of flickering warp energy. The Black Legionaries, led by their champion, rushed towards their hated loyalist foes, snarling as they covered the distance in leaping bounds. Melanus raised his bolt rifle, picking out a target through its optical sight, and squeezed the trigger. A rocket-propelled bolt round roared from the muzzle of his gun and thundered through the swirling empirical energy, slammed into a traitor's helm and detonated, shattering ceramite and cranium alike. The Chaos Space Marine collapsed mid-stride, striking the rocky ground lifeless. The rest of the heretics covered the ground in long, loping strides, propelled forwards by a combination of transhuman physiology, ancient power armour and dark sorcery. They struck the castellans of the rift with bone-crunching force, swinging chain weapons and the stocks of their bolt guns. Melanus watched as one of his brothers was borne to the ground, a whirring chain axe buried in the centre of his helm, blood gushing from the open wound. He drew his plasma pistol and fired. A searing ball of plasma energy struck the foe dead centre, only to fizzle away to nothingness, its energies consumed by the shroud of warp energy that suffused the heretic's armour. The heretic wrenched his still whirring axe free from the fallen space marine and turned towards Melanus. "You cannot harm me, brother," the heretic drawled bitterly, "for I have the favour of the true gods." As the traitor gloated, 3 lumbering green forms pressed their way through the melee, melter guns discharging beams of searing heat. Even the energies of the warp were no match for the Eradicator's cleansing fire. The Chaos Champion let out a frustrated howl just as a beam of blinding light struck. The shroud of roiling warp power that flickered across his armour could not hope to turn aside such intense heat. The traitor was consumed, reduced to a pool of molten armour and blackened, smouldering flesh. Melanus gazed warily upon the Noctilith crown, which still crackled with entropic force. The battle was far from over. Oh yeah, so there you go. That is story 12 finished there, Slaughter in the Rift. Yeah, that's all right. Not I don't really know. I don't really know how to describe that. It's a successor chapter that we don't really know anything about, the Castellans of the Rift. They're not particularly described in any unique or characterizing way. It takes part in the Nachman Gauntlet. It's neat to hear about the Noctilith Crown and how that sort of affects things, but yeah, that's a classic example of a story that just sort of ends a little bit too soon. Just a bit short-winded. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Some of these stories they could just expand them, and it would work, and it would be nice. And part of me wonders if in other parts of this collection, if it's not a case that you have the story, but then if you go to page number 57 of the Space Marine, fact file, then it would tell you more about the Castellans of the Rift. But what can I say? It is what it is. Well, onwards and upwards. Thank you again for listening. Thank you all again for your support with these videos. I appreciate it's not in the normal sort of purview of what this channel is sort of about, but overall feedback from you guys has been really positive and really upbeat. So I do appreciate that. What I'd say is if you've got any thoughts or any sort of criticism, by all means post it, because ultimately the only way we improve is with comments and feedback. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.